Hello, warriors. Today I want to talk about a topic that has been important to me in the last couple of weeks, which is how to be in a relationship when you're depressed, or how to deal with your relationship when you're depressed, or depression when you're in a relationship. Because it is true that it can be hard, and it's often said that a partner can be a great help in times of peril, let's say like that, when you feel like your life is not the same as it used to be. But the thing is also it can become quite heavy on you too, and it can take a toll on your relationship, the depression, because it is a serious topic. So tip number one that I would have to you is be careful how you phrase things. When we're depressed, we tend to victimize ourselves. We tend to think that our problem is never going to be solved. That's one of the characteristics of depression. And also, I'm sorry to say, but this is true, but it happened to me also a lot of times, and it still happens to me, is when I'm depressed, and when we're depressed, we tend to think that the world revolves around our problem. We're not capable of seeing anything else other than our problem, and how miserable it makes us feel. So tip number one would be try to phrase the problem in a way that seems a bit more practical and helpful towards the other person. For example, I remember my grandparents were really depressed, and they were dragging me down a lot when I was still in contact with them, because every time I would go have dinner with them, for example, they would just complain about how old they were, how sick they were, how no one cared, and the whole dinner revolved around that. The suggestion for me would be, in this case, if you feel like age is taking a toll on you, that it's screwing up your mental health, then saying how it makes you feel. So, I'm getting old, it is making me feel fearful, it's making me feel doubtful about myself, it makes me feel insecure about my health. And also talk about the steps that you're going to take in order to solve this issue. For example, maybe I'm going to start seeing a therapist, I'm going to start seeing my doctor more often, I'm going to make some changes in my diet, going to see my friends more often, or take a bit more rest, take time for myself, etc. So that takes off the victimization of the interaction, because the victimization creates a bit of hopelessness in the other person, because the other person wants to help you. But if you act like a victim and you don't present any solutions, or you refuse any solutions that the person presents to you, then the other person is going to feel hopeless, and they're going to feel uncomfortable eventually. Whereas if you work together with the other person to create solutions for yourself, even though you don't feel very hopeful, because that's the nature of depression, then the other person is going to feel more compelled to helpful and present solutions to you, and to be more supportive. So tip number two would be, don't put the tool of your well-being only on this person. It's If we are in a relationship, it's common to spend a lot of time with this person, and it's common that this person understands us the best. It's common that this person is our best friend. However, they cannot be our only best friend. And they cannot be the only person that knows about our story, that knows about our situation. Because as much as the person wants to help us, if you are coming with this emotional weight every day to them, it's going to take a toll on them as well, and eventually it's going to drag them down. So I'm not saying you should not talk to your partner every day. I'm not saying you should not be with your partner every day, especially if you live with your partner. What I'm saying is, rely also on your best friends. For example, if you have a day and you can have a day where you feel particularly down, and you can talk about those feelings with your partner in a way, in an emotional way, or you can cry, or you can let it go, etc. But there's another day where maybe you feel the same, and you do the same with your best friend. So when you come home, you say, oh, I spoke to so and so, and we spoke about this, and so now it leaves you time to do something else. It leaves you time to go watch a movie with your partner, go cook with your partner, go do some sports, do whatever, go for a walk with your partner, and it doesn't. And it takes like this pressure of having heavy conversations every day with this person. So they also have some time to breathe, because again, like I said, it can be heavy on them. Then this might seem counterintuitive, but don't share everything all the time. You don't have to always say how bad you are all the time. Of course you can say it, and of course you have to let your partner know about your emotional situation, which is serious. But you don't have to, again, maybe you can share a bit more with your friends and a bit less with your partner from time to time, so they can breathe from time to time. And if you think that there's something that is less important, or you think like maybe you had a bad day but you didn't have a catastrophically bad day, you don't have to always share that information with your partner, again, so he or she can have some breathing space. And in the same logic, when we're depressed, we tend not to see the good in anything. So, for example, if we had a day that was bad, we tend not to see that that day also had good stuff, or had stuff that we can laugh about, for example. I remember when I was depressed 4 years ago, my first depression, I tried to go to this Buddhist monastery for 3 days, because I had this cliche idea that it would save me, and it was actually a horrible experience, I'm sorry to say. I still meditate every day, I still like Buddhism, I'm not religious, I like the philosophy, nothing against monks, but I don't want to live the monastic life. And I had to wake up at 4:30 in the morning, and I couldn't eat after 12 because that's what the Buddha says. And also there were the people that were really annoying, actually, and they were just sharing all their life stories, and I was really depressed and I didn't want to hear about it. So when I came back, I said it to my therapist, it was horrible, and now I'm going to see my friends, and I have to, they're expecting me to come with this amazing experience, and this experience was just horrible. And what should I say? And she was like, well, you can rephrase it. Maybe there were things in this experience that were actually interesting or funny. And so I had it was a friend of mine, and we had some drinks, and we actually made fun of my experience in the Buddhist monastery, and I had a lot of fun just seeing it in another perspective, just seeing it in a more kind of like ridiculous, funny story perspective. So there is a way of rephrasing things. If you're depressed about your job, for example, there is a way of making it more funny if you have the minimum of sense of humor. So also share the funny or good or interesting parts of your day. Don't forget to leave that out, because when we're depressed, we tend to have these glasses that make us not see the good in anything. We see the world all in dark. And finally, I think this is important, but be careful, okay? I'm not talking about instances where you're immediately suicidal, because if you're immediately suicidal, then you shouldn't spend any time by yourself. You can't. You have to be followed by medical professions or by someone else all the time. That's okay. But if you're not, it's also important to spend time by yourself, because when we're depressed, we can easily fall into this trap of complaining all the time to anyone. And if we spend some days by ourselves, then we can see that we don't have to externalize everything we think all the time. And a lot of times those thoughts, they don't have a process. They don't finish their process. They don't get to conclusions. It's always like me, 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 me. Look at how miserable I am. And I'm not criticizing anyone. I do it all the time when I'm depressed. So, but you don't get to conclusions. And when you spend some time alone, for example, spend a day alone going for a hike, or spend a day alone, you know. Writing, reading, something that you like doing. I made a small video on my Instagram about it. You can reach an inner dialogue that can be interesting for yourself, and you can reach conclusions by yourself, and you can get out of this loop of always sharing everything with, in this case, with your partner, because you can create more coping mechanisms if you spend a bit of time by yourself from time to time. Okay, but without self-isolating, of course. There has to be a measure. I really hope this helps. I know that a relationship can be really good for depression, but it can also be hard to date with mental illness. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me. Email me, comment, whatever you feel, and I wish you happy healings, and if that's the case, very luck with your couple, relationship, etc. Okay, bye.